Fisher here with Adventure406. Today we are going to put all of this, that's a rear bumper with dual swing outs, onto this Land Cruiser. I bought this off of eBay. It's several $100s cheaper than a comparable ARB unit. So I just wanted to do a little video. I, again, am not going to do the disassembly of the factory bumper on the Land Cruiser. It's super straightforward, too easy, and I think that honestly the installation of this new bumper is going to be just as easy as taking off the old one. One thing I will recommend ahead of time is bring a buddy, because this sucker is heavy. Alright, so first note on the installation, it has these little screws here that hold the diamond plate on, and these rearward facing two make contact with the bumper support. So we're just going to go ahead and pull those off and try this again. In here, and if you're going to reuse the factory bolts as the manufacturer suggests, you either got to use a ton of washers or do what I did and just cut the hook part of it off, and that'll make it so that you'll have plenty of threads grabbing inside of there, and everything will be safe. Alright, so here's a good tip. What you want to do is thread all 6 bolts in with your fingers and make sure that all of them can catch some threads, and then once you have everything lined up the way you want it, then go ahead and hit them with some ooga doogas. We're going to start with the big boys, since they're the ones, they're the heavy duty ones. Give it, 3 or 4 ooga doogas. And then go ahead and hit the sides. What I didn't show was that I applied a liberal quantity of Loctite to all of these bolts, and just to get a kind of scope of how things go together. And I'll give you the lowdown here. One thing you want to pay attention to when you get started is check and make sure this is round. I had a huge dent in here, so I beat that out already. There's 2 different sizes of wheel or bearings here, not wheel bearings, just regular cone bearings. There's a big one and a small one. The big one goes on the bottom on the bumper side, and the small one goes on the top. And if that hole is anything but round, then you're gonna have issues getting your cone in there. So just a quick word to the wise, it's an easy fix with a hammer. I think these are cut and designed so that they just pretty much fall right in there. One thing too, before you get everything snugged in together, is make sure you really grease these bad boys up really good. There's no seals at the bottom of this to protect it from moisture, so the only way to do that is going to be to just grease the heck out of these things. But let's get into it. Alright, so I ended up using my press to push this bearing race in. I just couldn't get the shape of the hole right, so what that means then is we're just going to slide this cone onto the bottom over here. See, it just sits down in there. It's pretty much all the way. And then we're just going to set this bad boy on top of there and give it some love until it sits down into place. So what I did here was just grabbed a 36mm impact socket, and I'm just going to use this to tap this upper bearing race in. It doesn't take much, just a real gentle it makes a different sound when it sits down at the bottom of it. Boom, there it is. Inner bearing race will just slip right in there, and then and your kit here, you should have a giant nut and giant washer. Slip the washer on, thread the nut. Now what we're going to do, 24mm socket, is we're just going to tighten this up. And what you want to do is kind of keep wiggling this around to make sure that your bearing preload isn't too little or too much, because if you do it too tight, your bearings will seize up on you. It'll be hard for this to move. That's about perfect right there. You can see the threaded shaft is kind of cut into the nylon of the bolt there, and it still moves pretty easy. I might just give it one more reef here. Yeah, feels nice. So now we're going to take this little rubber pad and we're just going to stick it in here. Just start it so you can get some threads on the back there, and then grab a couple of these nuts with the serrated inside and just start them on there. Oops. Once you get them started, you can kind of finish pushing that on there, and then grab your nifty ratcheting box in and just run them in. You don't want them to be too tight because they need some room for adjustment. And this guy, just gonna run it in there. So you want to be able to move it around still, because we're gonna have to match it up over here. Now, one mistake that I made was I put the bumper on before these guys, and what you should do if you're smart is put the catch plates on before you put the bumper on, and just leave the bolts snug so you can adjust this, because you'll want it to match up with your rubber pad later on. Alright, if you're lucky like me, you can get these to catch on the back, and then it kind of holds them in place. And now we will just adjust this real quick. You want to kind of slide this down so it sits right in the middle of that, and then you want this to be as far to the right as you can and have it missing both of the bolts there. Kind of try and center it, and then you just take your nifty dishy drill and boom, snug this up like that. put that on there, and then snug these two nuts up here. Cool. Now, next step is to install this guy, which is real easy. Essentially, this goes on the inside and bolts through here, and then this hooks on there and then catches like that. So what you want to do is take one of these with a washer and then slide it through like that, and then grab another washer and a nylock nut, put it on the bottom. Just finger tighten it for now because it needs some adjustment. So then you want to put this on there and pull the latch shut. And the easiest way to do this is to back these nuts all the way off, kind of slide this guy in as far as you can by hand, and then with these nylock nuts out of the way, you can just run this in until everybody's nice and snug. Now the last bit here is fairly simple. All we're going to do is just grab your strut here, and we're just going to thread this in straight, and then take a little wrench and just tighten it up till it's snug. Alright, there's that. And just want to grab a washer and one of the serrated nuts, and it takes a little gumption to get this in there on the first go. Then once it's in, the tension should hold it in there long enough for you to reach around the back and just get that nut finger tight on there. Then you just snug it in. Alright, now we've got the spare tire mount. We're just going to set it right in there like that. This is adjustable, so you can move it in and out based on the size of tire that you've got. That's really cool. You just take your boat, put a washer on each end, thread it through, tighten it down.